Hey there, you fabulous folks. I hope your day has been absolutely awesome. We're back for another exciting episode of What If Naruto Was the Golden Devil? A big shout out to the amazing author behind this fanfiction, and show them some love. You'll find their details in the description box below. If this what if scenario is getting your imagination going, drop a comment down below and share your thoughts. And don't forget to explore more mind-blowing what ifs on the channel. Alright, without further ado, let's jump right into this video. Excalibur, ruler, Issei muttered in shock as he stared at Naruto's back. Here they were working together with the church girls to find and destroy one of the Excalibur swords, and it turned out that one of his senpais had one in his possession the whole time. Kiba stared hard at Naruto's form, gritting his teeth as he shifted his angered gaze towards Saber, an Excalibur ruler. So I was right after all. How could a devil have Excalibur ruler? It's been missing ever since it was created. Irina spoke up from the side where she and Zenovia were standing with their swords poised and ready to join in on the fight. Gawain was standing next to Issei and Kaneko with his own sword raised in front of him. However, his attention was mostly on Fried and Valper. I'll get my answers one way or another after this battle. Hee hee hee, wahahaha. Fuck yeah! Fried started laughing as he got back to his feet, Excalibur rapidly swinging in his hand. I have to admit it, asshole. You're an interesting guy for a shitty devil. But let's just see how you handle against this sword's true power. The sword in Fried's hand started to glow and envelop the fallen angel's body, causing one black wing to sprout out from his back. The former priest disappeared in an instant, making the others scan the area as they tried to track his movements. The only ones who appeared to be fine, however, was a calm Naruto and a grinning Valper. Darting his gaze to his left, Naruto raised Excalibur ruler and blocked Fried's side attack, striking him and Saber. With narrow eyes, Saber's body glowed and seemed to phase into Naruto's body, leaving him and Fried alone in their standoff. The two stared at each other for a few seconds before they both disappeared from everyone's sight, turning their heads upwards when the sounds of clashing blades could be heard coming from above them. While they couldn't see the bodies of Naruto and Fried clearly, they could see the sparks that were created from the powerful weapons making contact with each other before quickly separating. Holy shit. Those two are going even faster than when Fried was going against Kiba's night speed. Issei muttered as he tried to follow the battle. Not surprising, Excalibur rapidly grants the user incredible speed after all. It stands to reason that it can increase the level of speed it gives the user as well. Gawain spoke up while moving his eyes all over the place as he seemed to have little trouble following the movements of the fallen angel and devil. They could see Naruto dodge Fried's swing before kicking his side and sending him flying back. The reincarnated fallen angel readjusted himself after a few feet before speeding towards Naruto once again. I'm more surprised that Naruto-san is having no trouble keeping up. Taking a step back, Saji started to sweat as he took the battle in. So this is the power of a Lucifer, to be able to match a holy sword on the class of Excalibur. I can see why Kaicho considers him to be an important ally. Fried grunted as his blade once again connected with Naruto's. How the hell are you keeping up with me? I should be moving faster than you could possibly keep up. That's because of my Excalibur's special ability. Naruto answered with a cool smile as he pressed back against Fried. Just like its name suggests, it gives me the power to control anything I wish, and that is especially true for the other 6 Excaliburs. The blonde's smile grew when he saw the combined look of shock and realization appearing on Fried's face, before pushing the fallen angel back several meters. Do you understand now, Fried? I haven't been keeping up with your speed, you've been the one keeping up my mine. When our blades came in contact the first time, I sent a command to your sword to only give you enough of a speed boost where you could match my movements. So that the reason why Excalibur Destruction didn't destroy it when we fought. Zenovia's eyes narrowed when she recalled the battle she had with Naruto, how he was able to block her attacks without any reaction from her sword's destructive ability, and yet there was no issue when it had connected with the battlefield surrounding them. A sword that allows the user complete control over anything they wish. That is a power we can't let any devil possess. Damn it! Fried shouted as he gripped the hilt of his sword. Just die already, you bastard! It is time, Naruto-sama. Let's use the power Mother has given me. Saber called out from within Naruto's mind, to which her master nodded in agreement before holding the blade in front of him. Let's see how effective this new ability is. Time seemed to slow down as a few watched Naruto hold his sword with 2 hands as well and close his eyes. A soft, golden glow flowed from Naruto into his Excalibur ruler, causing it to pulse. As this was happening, the Excalibur in Freed's hands let out a pulse as well, though this seemed to escape his notice as he let out a grunt before charging at Naruto with the blade in the air. Issei's eyes widened at the fact that the older devil wasn't moving. "Naruto-senpai!" He and Kaneko were about to run towards him, but a female body appeared in front of them, blocking their paths with her arms. The brunette followed the arm and saw that it belonged to a certain vampire devil. "Arcuade-senpai? Just stay put, you will only get in his way." That was all she said as she kept her gaze focused on the battle, causing the two to reluctantly nod their heads. As soon as Freed was several feet away from Naruto, the blonde's eyes snapped open and raised his sword. An image of Saber in the same position with her arms raised appeared in front of him before she went into Excalibur ruler, causing it to glow brightly as Naruto spoke. "Let these two blade become one once again." Valper's eyes to widen when he heard this and shouted towards his ally. "Stop, Freed, don't get close to him." "Huh!" His words came too late, however, as Freed and Naruto swung their swords forward and collided with each other. Almost immediately a golden magical circle appeared under them, making many cover their eyes as bright energy tendrils emerged from it and swirled around Naruto and Freed before constricting around the two blades. Freed let out an angry grunt as he shifted his head away from the pure light magic. "You son of a bitch! What are you doing? Isn't it obvious?" Naruto questioned with a grin as the light started to completely cover them. "Excalibur rapidly belongs to me now." The bright light covered the area for a few seconds, blocking everyone from seeing what was happening. But soon the light began to fade and many lowered their arms so they could return to viewing the fight, and they were shocked at what they saw. Freed had fallen back on his ass and was looking up at a standing Naruto. But that wasn't what shocked them though. No, the truly shocking part was the fact that Naruto was holding a new Excalibur in his hand that was a fusion of ruler and rapidly. It had a guard similar to rulers except that it did not have a center, and was mostly a curve with several spikes coming out of the guard and was mostly smooth going to the main blade except for two edges midway on either side of the blade before continuing its curve up to the tip of the blade where two triangular holes were located. "Bastard!" Freed growled out as he glared at Naruto. "The Excaliburs." Saji started to speak, but remaining words couldn't leave his mouth from the shock. "He fused them together!" Irina exclaimed. No one could say anything else as they watched Naruto raise the sword up to look at it. A look of amazement appeared on his face as he studied the blade. "I can feel it, a lot more power in this thing than before. If this is only two of them, just imagine all seven." His eyes narrowed as an earlier thought came back to him, before his gaze shifted to Freed and a grim-looking Valper. "This thing is going to be incredible when it is completed. I can't wait to see what it will be capable of." "Freed, we need to retreat!" Valper shouted, making the fallen angel look back at him. The old man's body was trembling as he stared at Naruto with an excited grin. True, he was angry at the loss of one of the Excalibur blades, but his fascination with Naruto was overpowering it. A devil who could use light magic, handle holy artifacts and swords, and somehow bring together pieces of a sword that he had been researching for decades. Such a specimen was too difficult to ignore. "Originally you were supposed to kill the three sent by the church. But the situation is different now. Not only do we have the three Excalibur fragments that they possess, but the one that Naruto Lucifer has acquired from combining his ruler with one of ours. We need to leave now." Clicking his tongue in frustration, Freed got back on his feet and made it to Valper's side before reaching into his coat. Pulling out a pellet, Freed grinned widely as he threw it to the ground. "Don't think this is over. We'll see you all later." Realizing what he was doing, Kiba and Zenobia leaped at the two with their swords ready to strike. But they were too late as a flash of light covered the two and they disappeared. Not taking a moment to stop, Zenobia began running towards the forest. "Come on, Irina, we need to follow them." "But what about Naruto Lucifer?" Irina asked as she watched Zenobia run past her with Kiba right behind her. "Hold on, Kiba," Issei called out to his friend. "Stop right there, Kiba. You are not allowed to go after Freed, and that's an order," Naruto shouted, making Kiba slow down enough and come to a stop. Both of Rias and Naruto's peerages knew that the couple had agreed that while they were in charge of their own groups, they both had some control over their fiancés. "I understand that you want revenge for what happened to you and your friends, but this path of revenge that you are on will only lead to more suffering. You won't stop me, Naruto. I swore that I would destroy Excalibur and anything in relation to it." Kiba looked back to give Naruto and Saber a dark glare. "Once Freed and Valper are taken care of, I will come back. After all these years, all of their deaths will be avenged. My companions and my sister. Not paying attention to the shocked looks he was getting, Kiba once again started running off into the direction Zenovia had headed, disappearing into the darkness of the forest. After watching Kiba vanish from their field of vision, Naruto turned to see that Gawain was standing in front of Naruto with his Excalibur blessing pointed at Naruto's unmoving form. The church swordsman was silent for a few seconds before calling out to his remaining companion. "Go after them, Irina!" The girl turned her head to look at Gawain, who never took his eyes off of Naruto. Regardless of this new information on Naruto, Lucifer, and Excalibur, pursuing those two is our highest priority. It took Irina a few seconds before she nodded her head and followed after Zenovia, leaving Gawain on his own as he kept his blade pointed at Naruto. "Now I believe you have some things to explain. Like how exactly you obtained an Excalibur fragment that went missing centuries ago." "First of all, it never went missing, it was simply taken by its rightful owner," Naruto replied as he raised his own sword and used it to knock Gawain's away. "Secondly, if you want to hear the whole story, I will tell you in a little bit, if you don't mind waiting a minute or two." Gawain stared at Naruto for a few seconds before lowering his blade. "Alright, I'll listen to what you have to say, but there is one thing I want you to tell me, and this answer I will not wait for." "And what is that?" Naruto questioned with narrow eyes as he noticed Gawain turn his gaze to Saber, who had rematerialized and was hovering over his shoulder. "Who exactly is that sprite?" That caught the others' attention as they all focused their attention on the tiny girl. "It's faint, but I can feel a connection between her and my Excalibur blessing, almost as if something is pulling it towards her. She is a spirit I met when I was a child, trapped within a cave filled with darkness and a hidden forest within." Naruto raised his hand in a gesturing motion. "Until recently I've only known her by the name she had given herself, Saber Lily." The blonde was interrupted by Saber as she started to speak. "But that was because I didn't feel like I deserved the name I was given. I am a shield against any who would threaten my master, and the Shay of the original Excalibur. My true name I Avalon." "Avalon!" Issei called out in shock as he took a step back. "You're telling me I was standing near one of the most important tools in the Arthurian legends and I didn't even know? Wait, does that mean the dash?" As I thought, the situation appears to have become quite troublesome. Everyone turned their heads towards the voice and saw that it had belonged to Rias, who was standing in front of a red teleportation circle with a Kino, while Sona and Tsubaki stood in front of a blue one right next to them. "So what do you have to say for yourselves, Kaneko-chan?" Issei. Sona's glasses had a small glint to them as she stared at her pawn. "I am waiting for a very good explanation as well, Saji. Bucho/Kaicho." Issei and Saji shouted at the same time, nervous looks on both of their faces when they saw the looks their kings were sending them. A few minutes later, "I can't feel anything besides the pain," Saji whimpered as tears fell down his face. Sona's pawn was currently lying on the ground with his butt in the air and steam coming off it, while Sona stood behind him with her arms crossed. "Good, that means you will think before acting next time," the short-haired king said with a firm tone before she glanced to the side where Rias was also disciplining Issei with magical spankings. "The next time you try something like this, I will raise the spankings to 10,000. There's no way I wouldn't survive that." "For rivals, those two sure have similar mindset, huh?" Arcuate commented. "Sona-sama and Rias-sama are childhood friends that grew up in similar environments," Tsubaki replied while lifting her glasses up a bit to adjust them. "It is to be expected that despite their differences that some things would be the same." Akino let out a small laugh as she heard Issei's let out another shout. Era, that one sounded like it really stung. "I am not letting Naruto anywhere near my but when he delivers punishments," Arcuate said with a shiver. "Maybe I should talk to him about other methods of punishments." "That is a possibility given how long you've been around. There must have been a large number of disciplinary techniques that you've seen." Tsubaki nodded her head before glancing at her king who was waiting for Rias to finish. "I don't know, Naruto-kun's light magic could leave a nice sting to his punishments. I can only imagine how those would feel, fufufu." Arcuate looked at the long ponytailed girl with a raised eyebrow. "You are really into all that S&M and crazy stuff, aren't you?" The three queens were standing next to Kaneko while Gawain was sitting on a large boulder that was lodged deep into one of the walls with his now sheathed Excalibur blessing leaning against his shoulder. All of them resumed their watching as Rias was finishing up Issei's punishment. The only one who wasn't paying attention was Naruto, who was leaning on a destroyed desk with Saber sitting on his shoulder. The blonde devil appeared to be deep in thought about something as he stared down at the Excalibur ruler/rapidly fusion in his hands. But he was quickly snapped out of it when he felt Saber push her hand against his cheek, making him look up from the sword to where Rias and Issei were. The brunette let out one last yelp before releasing the strength he had in his arms and fell to the ground. "Well, I think my ass is dead now. Let that be a lesson on making me worry so much." Rias shook her head with a smile before leaning down and patted Issei on the head. "I know your heart was in the right place, but Kiba is on a path filled revenge. He won't be thinking rationally when it comes to Excalibur. And anything related to it, I have no doubt that he knows about Saber's true identity as well." Naruto spoke up, making all eyes turn to look at him. "Speaking of which," Issei started to say as he slowly made it back to his feet, rubbing his sword behind as he stood straight. "Why didn't you tell us about Saber's identity, or the fact that you had one of the Excalibur blades with you? I'd like to know that as well. You did say that you would give me a proper explanation if I waited," Gawain said with a blank face. Normally he would have no problem with getting answers later. However, the fact remained that not only was the final Excalibur that had been missing for centuries had been found in the hands of a devil, but also a holy artifact that hadn't been seen since the age of Camelot. Both of these powerful items were in the hands of a devil that could use light magic and was someone that the higher-ups from the church had ordered to not harm, and that made Gawain raise a lot of questions. Naruto looked back at Gawain quietly before nodding. "Alright then, to answer your question, Issei, I did tell Rias, Akino, Sona, and Arcuate about Saber. So we were the only ones who didn't know." Naruto nodded his head. "Rias and Akino were the first ones Saber and I told. It was because of Saber and my hidden devil blood that I wasn't reincarnated as Rias Knight. I had told them about Saber, and we agreed that it was better to not let Kiba know about her until the time was right." "But what about Kaicho?" Saiji asked while getting back to his feet. "He and Rias had informed me about his abilities involving light magic before he became the House of Lucifer's heir, and then revealed Saber's identity after his duel with Riser," Sona explained to her pawn. "We had come to an agreement that keeping those details a secret were the best option since there was no certainty on how the factions would react. It was lucky that no one had done anything when they found out he could use light magic and had immunity to the normal weaknesses. Well, besides the married proposals," Naruto said with a shrug, making Rias and Akino frown a little at that. "Of course my family knew about her as well. It wasn't like I could hide that from them. And I was told since I was going to become a part of his peerage, though I already had my suspicions because I've dealt with a few situations like these," Arcuate commented with a shrug. With a nod of his head, Gawain jumped off the boulder while keeping his sword at his waist. He could understand the logic behind the three devils' decisions to keep the powerful artifact a secret. "So now that you answered those questions, maybe you can tell us where you found Avalon and Excalibur ruler. You had said something about her being in a cave, right?" "That's right. It was 11 years ago when I was a child. I was with my mother playing in a park, and as we were leaving I heard the sound of someone crying. I separated from my mother and followed the voice until I made it a cave before going inside. When I had made it to the end of the cave, I found out that there was an inner forest. It was there that I had found Saber in her sheath form resting against a tree. Someone had sealed her away inside the cave centuries ago, and she was left alone to her sadness and guilt as it ate at her." Naruto smiled as he reached up and held his hand out for Saber to climb on. "The two of us talked for a bit, and I decided to take her with me, and the best way for us to do that was for us to merge Avalon with my body. After that, the two of us were always together and enjoyed life until I came to Kuoh Academy, and later became a devil. But it wasn't until Kuoh Academy that Naruto-sama discovered about who I really was and learned to access to my powers," Saber added with a nod of her head. "That explains that, but how do you have one of the Excalibur fragments?" Tsubaki questioned. Raising the sword up with his other hand for all to see, Naruto continued his story. "It was during the time that Rias-chan, her peerage, and I had gone to the familiar forest. Saber and I had left the group because someone had called out to the two of us." "Someone called out to you too? Who was it?" Saji crossed his arms with a puzzled look. "The goddess who gave Excalibur and Avalon to King Arthur, also known as the Lady of the Lake," Naruto replied, getting a few gasps from the people who didn't know about that. "And after we met and talked, she gave me Excalibur ruler with a personal quest that only Saber and I could do." The blonde devil shifted his gaze around the room before focusing it on Gawain. "Using Saber's power, I am to reunite all 7 fragments and merge them together to bring back the true Excalibur. The true Excalibur! But why would you want to bring it back? It caused Kiba so much pain and killed his friends and even his sister. Issei exclaimed with a clenched fist. In the brunette's mind, as long as Excalibur was in the area, Kiba would continue to seek revenge and never move on. That was why he tried to have them work together with the people from the church, since their goals had semi-similar results. No, Issei, Arcuate said, making his turn to see her shake her head. It was the church's fault that there were 7 Excaliburs made from the original, instead of reforming it and giving it back to Lady Vivian like King Arthur requested. But even then, the fact remains that Excalibur does not deserve to be blamed for something it had no control over. Noticing a few of the looks his queen was getting, Naruto let out a sigh before he started speaking. If a murderer kills someone you love with a gun, do you hate the gun that was being used by the killer and all guns like it? No, the Excalibur was just the target of horrible circumstances, and so was Kiba and Saber. When Lady Vivian had given Excalibur ruler to Naruto-sama, it was the first time I had seen Excalibur in centuries. Saber explained while bowing her head, and then the tiny girl's body started to tremble. I was horrified at what had become of my oldest companion. So you're saying that it was a legendary goddess found you worthy and gave you the sword? Gawain questioned as he made his way to stand directly in front of Naruto, their eyes meeting in a clash of wills as Gawain seemed to study Naruto for any sign of deceit. I'm guessing that she also is responsible for that ability to combine the Excalibur fragments. Yes, I am, and it's your choice on whether you believe me or not. But regardless of what you think, I will complete the quest she gave me. Now then, I think we've all had a long night and should wait until tomorrow for either Kiba or the church girls to get in contact with us. Raising his hand, Naruto summoned a large teleportation circle a few feet away from the group, to which Sona summoned her own in response. Naruto turned towards Issei and Kaneko and walked to them, stopping when he was a foot away from them. He reached and surprised them both. He patted them on the shoulders. Despite how reckless the two of you were, it's great to see that you wanted to help Kiba so much. But remember this, even if he gets his revenge, that doesn't mean he will be at peace. Dismissing the confused look he was getting from Issei, the blonde glanced over at Rias. Tomorrow, we will come up with a plan if something goes wrong. That would be the best move, Rias replied with a nod. It looks like all of us are involved in this now thanks to our peerages meddling in. Sona closed her eyes for a few seconds before opening them to stare at her fellow kings. I would rather stay out of this, but if either of you require any assistance, just let me know. Right, Naruto replied with a smile for glancing back at Gawain, and his smile turned serious. Since your comrades have agreed to work with us, you should also join the two of us tomorrow for our planning. The male swordsman was quiet for a few moments before nodding his head. That would be the best option at the moment. I will go to the Gremory headquarters later tomorrow. Alright, we'll see you there. Hopefully by then those 3 will contact us before then. Soon both members of Naruto and Rias peerages were standing within Naruto's circle while Sona, Tsubaki and Saji stood within the cities. The inside of the building was covered in gold and blue lights as the two groups were transported away, leaving Gawain by himself. The man of the church appeared to be deep in thought as he stared at where Naruto and Saber had been. Letting out a sigh, Gawain shook his head with a small smile. I didn't think I would actually get the chance to see Avalon with my own 2 eyes. Our orders were to retrieve the fragments that were stolen, but if Lady Vivian really did see him as worthy of both Avalon and Excalibur, dear lord, what should I do? The red-headed Gremory could feel something was wrong as she laid on the mattress with her eyes closed as she tried to sleep. But despite the minutes that passed, she couldn't feel herself drifting off. She was too worried about Kiba and his desire for revenge consuming him. Memories of the night that she had found Kiba dying in the snow and reincarnated him into her night went through her mind. But that wasn't the only thing that had worried her. Feeling the bed shift next to her paused her thoughts. She listened to Naruto's footsteps walk away from the bed before the sounds came to a stop. The sounds of a window opening could be heard, causing Rias to open her eyes and slowly rise from the bed to see what Naruto was doing. Her fiancé was currently leaning on the open windowsill, the moonlight shining down on him as he stared up at the sky. Slowly making her way out of bed, she made her way over to him. Naruto-kun? Her words seemed to snap him out of whatever he was thinking of as he turned his head to look at her and take in her appearance. Rias was wearing a lavender nightgown that reached her knees with white frills at the end. Oh, Rias-chan, sorry, did I wake you up? Not really, I couldn't sleep. There are too many things on my mind right now. Rias replied with a small smile before reaching up and placing a hand on Naruto's arm. It's the same for you, right? Naruto was quiet as he stared at Rias before looking out the window once again. Saber is currently resting, so I thought this would be the perfect time to gather my thoughts together. The last thing I wanted to make things worse for her. She doesn't show much, but I can tell that this whole mess involving Excalibur is tearing her up inside. Anyone would be if they had gone through what she had. Rias commented before moving closer to Naruto's body, resting her head against his bare shoulder. Naruto was only wearing dark blue pajama pants, leaving his upper body exposed to the cool night air coming in. So what were you thinking about? I was thinking about earlier. Saber and I have finally begun our mission and acquired the second fragment, and now everyone knows about her. Naruto placed a hand on the windowsill as he stared up at the moon. Did you know about Kiba's sister? Yes, I knew. She was his twin and another victim of the Holy Sword Project. According to Kiba, she was one of the ones that had the best chance at being able to wield a holy sword. Rias closed her eyes as she visualized the snowy night in her mind. The day that Kiba's comrades were killed, the two of them were the only ones to escape. But she stayed behind to fight off one of the men that had pursued them. Kiba had gone back to see if he could find her, or at the very least her body. But there was no sign of her anywhere. It's possible they took her body back to the others and disposed of all of them at once. Is that what's bothering you? Naruto asked as he raised an arm and wrapped it around Ria's shoulders, bringing her closer to him as they silently enjoyed each other's presence. Rias nodded her head as she closed her eyes and rubbed her cheek against Naruto's chest, listening to his heartbeat for a few seconds before she spoke. I'm not just worried about Kiba though, but you and Saber as well. The two of us will be fine. For whatever reason, the higher-ups in the church and Angel faction have ordered that I am not to be targeted. But that also means that for now I can focus on the important tasks at hand. Naruto lowered his head until his chin was resting on top of Ria's head and grew a small smile. Things may not seem to be great right now, but I promise I will never leave you. You better keep that promise, especially with any other women that appear in your life. That caught Naruto by surprise as he pulled away from Rias to look at her. Rias-chan? What are you? It's not like I'm saying that I'm going to be 100% okay with it, Rias said as she averted her gaze away from Naruto with a slightly somber look. I am well aware of the fact you could end up with multiple wives in order for you to revive your house. That's to be expected since you are the heir. But that doesn't mean that I will sit by while other girls try to dash. The redhead was cut off from finishing her sentence as Naruto tilted her head to face him and silenced her with a kiss, causing her eyes to widen from the sudden action. But not even a second passed before Rias relaxed and closed her eyes as she began to return the kiss. The two soon parted for air and Naruto leaned forward, lightly pressing his forehead against his fiancée's. You will never have to worry about that. Any girls I do end up marrying won't make me brush you aside. I won't put them over you. But still, it would be the same as said for them, right? Rias replied with a smile, not moving from her spot as she continued. If you fall in love with them as much as you have for me, then it wouldn't be right for me to keep you all to myself. So that's why I've decided to be the one to manage of your harem. Manage my harem, the one in charge? Of course. Rias's personality seemed to flip as she was suddenly a few feet away from Naruto with her arms crossed under her large bust, a coy smile on her face. My father actually has a harem of his own and my mother is the one that manages it. I've seen her in action, so I have some knowledge on what I can do, not to mention the shows that I've seen that have a harem genre. Shows with harem genres, isn't that mostly with anime and manga? Naruto mumbled to himself with a raised eyebrow. He watched as Rias continued talking for a bit before he finally spoke up. Rias-chan? That seemed to catch her attention as she turned to look at him. Yes, Naruto-kun? Did you need something? As fun as it is to hear what you have planned, I think we should turn in for the night. Naruto rubbed the back of his head as he turned back towards the open window, reaching up and closed it slowly. We have to be ready for tomorrow. I suppose you're right. We can talk about this later, Rias said with a smile before she and Naruto made their way back to the bed, making their way under the covers. The Gremry heiress was pressing herself against Naruto's frame and rested her head against his chest. But before sleep could take her, another thought came to mind. Naruto-kun? She could feel his head shift a little. Yeah? Was there already someone that you are thinking about? The way you said it before, it sounded like you had someone in mind. We'll worry about it when everything is over. I wasn't even sure that you would be fine with me having a harem in the first place. Naruto closed his eyes as he said this, seemingly ignoring the curious look Rias was giving him. I was a little worried you would start to think that I was similar to Razor. You're nothing like him, and we both know that. I will not be against it as long as it is someone who truly loves you and you love them in return, and someone that I approve of. Rias let out a small yawn before closing her eyes as well. Just remember to tell me these things. The two of us are engaged after all. Naruto listened as Rias' breathing started to change, and soon enough the buxom devil was asleep. Yeah, you're right. Good night, Rias-chan. The blonde's eyes closed and sleep started to take over him as well. The following morning, walking down the hallway with his arms stretched in the air, Naruto opened his mouth widely and let out a loud yawn. Both he and Rias had gotten up around the same time and were getting ready for school, but the red-headed devil had retreated back to her room while telling him to go on ahead. For some reason I feel tired and a little sore too. I wonder why. It is possible that combining the two swords put a strain on your body, Saber replied while crossing her arms. She was floating next to Naruto as the blonde made his way around the corner. A strain? But I was feeling fine during and after the battle. Naruto let out a grunt as he felt pressure on the side of his neck before twisting his head to the side, and was pleased to hear a cracking sound before the pressure disappeared. It could be a small side effect from using the power that Mother had given us, or maybe the adrenaline from yesterday was holding back the fatigue you were feeling, Saber explained with a closed-eyed smile, not noticing Naruto perk his head up as he could have sworn he heard someone let out a yell. Regardless of what the reason is, I'm glad to see that you are doing well after combining Excalibur Ruler and rapidly. We are getting closer to completing our goal. Only 5 swords remain until Excalibur becomes whole once again. Shaking his head, Naruto dismissed the sound and gave Saber a grin. Yeah, but we can't rest easy. Freed still has possession of 2 more Excalibur fragments while the members from the church have the other 3. And I seriously doubt they would just hand them over to me, not to mention the fact that Kokobile is still out there. Very true, but as you said to Gawain last night that we would complete the quest, Saber said before noticing that Naruto was staring down at the ground with a very serious expression. Is something the matter, Naruto-sama? As much as I hate to admit this, part of me is wondering if we would stand a chance against Kokobile. Naruto didn't need to look at his partner to know she had a surprised look on her face. You remember last night when I met Azazel? I don't know if it was because of his calm persona, but I don't think he even saw me as a threat. From what I've read about him, Azazel is the leader of fallen angels and has 6 sets of wings, which is 4 more than Abazath had, and from what I read only 1 set more than Kokobile. Naruto-sama. The Lucifer was surprised when Saber suddenly appeared in front of him with a cool expression, before shocking him as she slapping his cheek with enough force to turn his head. Like I have stated before, as long as you and I are together, you will never have to fight alone. I will be your shield and Excalibur will be your blade, so as our master you must not hesitate. Saber. Just like always, face your enemy with everything you've got and never doubt yourself, for the moment that you do you will die. Yeah, you're right, Saber. I can't doubt myself now after everything I've done till now, not after all the battles and harsh training I've been through. The tiny girl's body straightened as she watched Naruto start to grin at her. Thanks for snapping me out of my funk. We've got a lot of work to do, so I am counting on your support. Of course, Naruto-sama, Saber said with a smile before bringing her arm across her chest in a salute. Naruto nodded his head with smirk before he began to walk again. The two made their way through the hallway and were getting close to the stairs. But just as Naruto was about to go down the steps, a voice with an accent coming from behind him. Gosh darn it, why does this happen to me every time? Naruto and Avalon turned their heads at the other hallway entrance and saw a teenage girl with bright red hair kneeling down next to what appeared to be a smoking and very destroyed vacuum cleaner. She was wearing a collared white long-sleeved midriff shirt with brown designs on the back and a brown breast pocket. The sleeves of her shirt were rolled up to her elbows to reveal a brown edge, and she had dark orange that reached down to cover what appeared to be cowgirl boots. The curiosity got to Naruto as he turned around and walked up to the girl, standing right behind her as she continued to stare at the broken machinery. Is everything okay? Yeah, I'm fine. This kind of thing happens whenever I try using machines like these. They just end up busted the moment my hand touches it. The girl let out a sigh before letting her head drop. I tried to tell Yuya that this might happen, but boy, that girl can curse worse than any drunken sailor. Naruto let out a chuckle. That's Tayuya for you. I've known her for years and honestly I wouldn't be surprised if one of her first words was an insult or curse. Ain't that the truth? And when she lent this to me, she said that this thing would never break. So I am guessing that yell earlier was you? The girl let out a weak laugh as she rose to her feet, placing her hands on her hips as she turned her head partially in his direction with her eyes closed. Yup, unfortunately the thing sparked and exploded before catching on fire. I'm just glad that nothing was caught in the destruction or Lady Kaguya would have been furious. Well, it seems like you took care of mess pretty well. Just a little cleaning up and I doubt Grandma would stay angry, Naruto replied before glancing at the scorch marks surrounding the vacuum. Though she might get angry at Tayuya for skipping her duties since this was her area to clean today. No, I volunteered to do this. I just arrived here not that long ago, so I figured I'd find something to be useful. The girl's body seemed to freeze before slowly turning around to face him, revealing sky blue eyes that seemed to shrink when she finally realized who she had been talking to. Lord Naruto, I'm sorry, I didn't know that it was you. Noticing the change in how she spoke, Naruto raised an eyebrow. It's completely fine, you don't have to worry, I don't think we've met actually. Oh, that's right. I'm Gemini Sunrise, though I guess it's Lucifer now, huh? Anyway, I'm a member of the Lucifer side branch. Gemini, huh? That accent of yours, are you from another country? Gemini smiled as she puffed out her chest. That's right. Until now I was born and raised in Texas, America's Lone Star State. Wow, I've never been to America before, what's it like? Naruto asked with a grin. Well, it's pretty big over there, lots of buildings and people. But there are a few places that are just open fields for you to run in, and so much beauty in nature. Gemini raised a hand and scratched her cheek. Though that last part is mostly what I grew up with, truthfully I only been in the city a few times. I don't see anything wrong with that. Saber spoke up as she landed on Naruto's shoulder. Sometimes I enjoy taking in nature's beauty more than being in the city, especially when you are able to go stargazing. Wow, that must be the famous Saber I've been hearing about. She's adorable. Gemini gushed as she stared at the tiny spirit. Her words made Saber blush a little. Don't be ridiculous. I am a knight that has been around since the days of Camelot, and am not adorable. Saber exclaimed as she pointed her finger at Gemini with an angry scowl. The spirit of Avalon was quickly silenced when Naruto reached up and patted her on the head. Don't mind her, she's always been like this, Gemini? I can't believe I'm got to meet an actual knight. Taking up arms to fight for honor and their country, fighting with both grace and ferocity. The cowgirl had her hands on her cheeks as she seemed to be in a daze. I hope I can one day raise my own sword high. Hey Gemini? Naruto called out again. Saber floated off Naruto's shoulder and flew in front of the girl's face, waving her hands a few times before turning back to Naruto. I think she's daydreaming, Naruto-sama. Give up now, Karan, you will die on the battlefield, Gemini said in a deeper voice. Looking at the girl with a worried look and then back towards the hallway where Asia and Rias could be seen walking towards the stairs, Naruto scratched the back of his head. I don't know what I should do in this kind of situation. While it wouldn't be right to leave her like this, I'm afraid that we don't have time to waste. You and the others need to get to school and meet up with Gawain after, Saber commented as she floated to Naruto's side, giving a glance back at a blushing Gemini. I'm sure she will snap out of it soon. Let's get going, Naruto-sama. I guess you're right, hold on, let me write a note or something. Naruto reached into his school bag and after a few seconds pulls out a blank piece of paper. Saber watches as Naruto writes something down quickly and places it in Gemini's hand, which didn't seem to bother the girl as she continued her daydream. Okay Saber, let's get going. Gemini was oblivious to the two as they walked away from her. Princess Katrina, we must escape from here. You shall not die this day. Why are you just standing there, Gamin Dash? No one shall lay a hand on the princess, Gemini suddenly shouted as she threw a punch into the air. The red-headed Texan snapped out of her fantasy when she felt her fist make contact with flesh, which was instantly followed by the sound of a female grunt and a body hitting the floor. Ow! What the hell, Gemini? Why the fuck did you just sucker punch me? Gemini paled once again as she looked down at the ground to see a familiar shade of reddish-pink hair and an equally familiar irritated look with brown eyes staring up at her. The hair and eyes belonged to one Tayuya Lucifer, and she was not pleased with the slightly swollen cheek she was rubbing. Tita Tayuya, I'm so sorry about that, I didn't mean to. I was just talking to Lord Naru, huh? He's gone. Gemini looked back and forth on either side of the hallway before an embarrassed look appeared on her now completely red face. Ah man, I got caught up in my own sky saddle again. And in front of him of all people, This is not how I want the first meeting to go. The sound of cracking knuckles was heard coming from behind her, making her freeze as she heard Tayuya speak. I wouldn't worry so much about that right now. I'd be more worried about the payback I'm about to fucking deal to your airhead of a skull. Oh, come on now, Tayuya. I apologized, didn't I? Yeah, and this is my way of saying I forgive you. No. Members of the side branch turned their heads when they heard the sound of a female screaming, followed by a loud crashing noise. Later at ORC building. So, there still hasn't been any word from Kiba? Issei inquired as he stared at Rias and Akino from his spot next to Asia, Mito and Kaneko. The later two were both sitting on one of the couches rather than standing with him and Asia. I'm afraid not. Akino answered with a shake of her head, standing next to the couch side that Rias was seated. The next one to speak was Gawain, who was standing near one of the windows with his arms crossed. Unfortunately, I haven't gotten a call from Zenobia or Irina either. I would have figured that they would have tried to contact me by now. Do you think they're alright? Asia worriedly asked. Kiba is with those girls, and all three of them are skilled fighters. Rias replied while glancing next to her where Naruto was sitting with Saber on his lap. Both of them had their eyes closed and were completely silent. Despite that stray exorcist becoming a fallen angel, I thought that it would be easy for them to chase him down. But, did we do something we shouldn't have? Issei muttered to himself before staring hard at the ground. Is it because of my decision to get involved? No, Issei. Naruto finally spoke up, making everyone turn to see that he was looking at them with his arms were now crossed. But on his lap, Saber remained unmoved with her eyes still closed. Regardless if you made a move or not, Kiba might have gotten involved anyways. Not to mention the fact that I was going to be a part of this sooner or later. Just like Akino, Arcuade was on the side her king was seated, except she was sitting on the arm of the couch. Naruto is right, and now that we are involved we can't wait for one of them to get in contact with us. She is right. All of our familiars are searching the entire city for any sign of them while we have Saber try to locate the Excalibur fragments that they possess. Rias explained as a frown appeared on her face. Once we have located them we will make our move. Any objections, Gawain-san? No, that sounds like the best option at the moment. Gawain nodded his head before glancing at the sunset outside. Hopefully we will find them before anything bad happens. For some reason I am getting a bad feeling. Asia quietly watched Gawain for a few seconds before walking over to him, placing her hand on his shoulder to get his attention. Once he turned his head back to look at her, the blonde girl flashed him a smile. Don't worry, Gawain. I am sure we'll find them soon. Yeah. Thank you, Asia. The wielder of Excalibur blessings said while smiling back at the girl. Neither noticed the twitching eyebrow Naruto had or the amused look Akino had as she stared at him. Era, it looks like Gawain has caught the affections of our little Asia, huh, Naruto-kun? Akino whispered over Rias to Naruto, making Rias let out a low giggle as Naruto turned to look at them with an unamused frown. Don't start, Akino-chan, don't even start. Saber's eyes snapped open before she rose to her feet, while at the same time Rias' hand started to glow. I'm detecting a large concentration on the outskirts of the town. That's where my familiar is located. According to her, she found one of the girls. Rias explained before rising from her seat with Akino summoning a transportation circle at the same time. Let's get moving. Naruto nodded before glancing towards his youngest sister. Mito-chan, I want you to teleport back to the Lucifer mansion and stay there with Mom and Grandma. But Oni-chan dash. No buts. Naruto interrupted the girl as Rias Peerage walked into their circle before teleporting away and created his own. This is going to be dangerous, and knowing that you are safe at home is more comforting than you being on the battlefield. The girl went silent before nodding her head, not saying anything as Naruto walked past her and stood in front of Gawain. It will be faster if you tag along with us. My teleportation circle will be able to handle you traveling with us. Right, let's get going then. Gawain replied before he, Naruto, and Arcuade made their way onto the circle, making it glow brighter. Oni-chan! Naruto glanced back at Mito, who had rose out of her seat. Good luck and kick their butts. A grin grew on Naruto's face as he gave her a thumbs up. One last thing could be heard as the circle's light started to cover the three and transported them away. Of course. We'll see you later, Mito-chan. Seconds later, Mito stood alone as she looked down to the ground, before the dog-sized Kichi appearing next to her, and placed its head under one of her hands. Brushing her hand against her familiar's head, Mito whispered to herself, Everyone, please be alright. It turned out that the person that Saber had sensed and that Ria's familiar had found was Irina. The two groups had arrived to find her injured body was being held by the bat in her human form. Looking at her form, they could see most of her clothes had been ripped and slashed, which exposed a lot of her nude form. "Irina!" Issei shouted as he started running towards her, while Gawain and Asia right behind him. The two boys knelt down next to Irina's body while Asia quickly summoned her sacred gear to start healing her wounds. "It looks like she was injured pretty badly," Asia said worriedly as she focused her healing on one of Irina's wounds while shifting her gaze down to the other injuries covering her body. "Even with my powers, it will take some time before she can move around." Hearing the girl let out a groan, Gawain reached down and held one of Irina's hands. "Irina, tell me what happened. I thought you were with Zenovia and Kibayudo. Where are they? And how did you end up like this?" "Senpai, they managed to get away before he attacked." Irina tried to explain, though she winced in pain several times. "I was the only one who couldn't." "He? Who was he, Irina?" Issei questioned as he stared down at her panting form, more focused on that she was found injured and in pain rather than the fact she was mostly naked. "Are you talking about Fried?" Naruto's eyes studied the area around them, before narrowing when he realized an important detail. "She doesn't have Excalibur mimic on her, nor do I see it nearby, so that means someone took it, but I can still sense its presence." "Don't let your guard down. That person's powers are not to be taken lightly." Irina's body tensed up as the pain started to get to her once again. The group tensed when they heard her say that. The first one to speak was Issei. "That person? Please don't talk, Irina-san," Asia warned as she focused more energy into healing the girl. "Senpai Issei, please be careful." That was all Irina managed to get out with a small pain-filled smile before she passed out from the pain. "Hold on, Irina!" Gawain exclaimed before reaching two of his fingers out and placed them on her neck, waiting a few seconds before letting out a sigh. "Thank God she's only passed out. We can take care of it from here." A voice spoke up, making many turn their heads to see Sona, Tsubaki and Saji standing over their blue transportation circle. Rias nodded with a smile as the three rushed over. "Thank you for coming, Sona. After sending me that message, how could I refuse? I did say to contact me if you needed any assistance," Sona replied while kneeling down next to Asia. "It looks like she received a lot of physical damage." "That's right. Unfortunately, my Twilight healing can't recover the exhausted strength of the person it is healing," Asia explained to the heiress of Citri, who nodded her head in understanding before turning to her queen. "Tsubaki, take her back with you." Nodding her head, Tsubaki knelt down and picked Irina up bridal style. "We have the proper equipment needed to heal her back at my house. I'll leave her in your hands." "Yes, ma'am." Tsubaki took a step back from the group and teleported her and Irina away. Gawain and the others stood up, with the former bowing his head at Sona. "Thank you for helping her. Like I said, it's not like I could stand back and watch," Sona replied before adjusting her glasses. "Besides that, is it really appropriate for a member of the church like you to thank me? I am a devil after all. Regardless of my faith, I never turn away from expressing my gratitude to those that helped my friends," Gawain replied with a smile before his expression turned serious. "Anyway, at least now we know that Zenovia and Kibayudo seem to be alright." "That's right, but we can't be sure until we find them," Naruto said before turning around fully, facing several of the trees a few yards back. "But before that, how about you come out from hiding? There's no point in you trying since I can sense the presence of Excalibur." A sensation went through all the devils as they watched Fried emerge from behind the trees, with a black wing stretched out and a sheathed sword in hand. "I had a feeling that you would be able to find me. Though it's not like that, it really matters now. I have all of my prey assembled before me and the rest of the fragments within reach. How are you doing this fine day, shitty devils?" "So it was Fried after all," Issei muttered, gritting his teeth as he watched the reincarnated fallen angel stick his tongue out at them. "Oh look, if it isn't the traitor-turned-shitty devil Asia-chan." Fried grinned mockingly as he swung his sheathed sword back and forth. "Having a great time as a devil, huh?" Asia took a hesitant step back as she saw the look in Fried's eyes. Though it only happened in an instant, the memories of when he had attempted to rape her wasn't something she was just going to forget. But before Fried could say anything else, Gawain and Issei stood in front of Asia protectively. "Shut the hell up, you bastard!" Issei shouted as he summoned his boosted gear. "Fried Selzen," Gawain growled out as he reached down and unsheathed Excalibur blessing, pointing its blade at the former exorcist. For what you did to Asia and to Irina, I suggest you say one last prayer before I cut you down." Naruto moved in front of the two with his own Excalibur held tightly in one of his hands while Rias and Sona stood on either side of him. All three of them had their hands held out with magical circles appearing in front of them and were covered in a mix of red, blue, reddish purple and gold as they built up their magical attacks to strike free down. But the white-haired boy waved his hand in front of him. "Hey, hold on 1 second. Hold on. There is actually something we want to say to the crimson-haired lady and Lucifer." "Something you want to say?" Rias repeated as she, Naruto and Sona dismissed their magical circles, though Naruto kept his sword ready in case of a sneak attack. "That's right, though it's actually our boss who does," Fried said with a smirk, raising his head up to motion them to look up as well. The sky quickly turned dark as the devils and church swordsmen looked up to see a figure overhead, a figure with multiple black wings. He had the appearance of a young man with black hair, pale white skin and pointy ears. He was wearing a very detailed black robe with golden shoulder pads. "A fallen angel," Kaneko said with narrow eyes. "Not only that, but he has 5 sets of wings. That means he's a cadre-level fallen angel," Akino added as she studied the man above them. Naruto shifted his stance and changed Excalibur ruler's position. "So I take it you're Kokabul. Well done, descendant of Lucifer. I've been looking forward to meeting you and the daughter of Gremory for quite some time now." Kokabul's eyes glowed red as he stared down at all of the devils, with his focus more on Naruto, Rias and Sona than the others. "But to introduce myself properly, my name is Kokabul." "Hello, fallen angel Kokabul," Rias called out with a smile as she crossed her arms, making Kokabul focus his attention on her. "My name is Rias Gremory. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance. What familiar crimson hair, such a unique beauty to it. You look just like your demon lord of a brother Surzex," Kokabul commented with a grin. "The thought of him and the sight of you both make me want to vomit." Easily ignoring the man's comment, the red-headed devil spoke. "So why did you want to meet us here? What was the purpose? There must be one for you, a cadre level, to come here yourself. I'm going to have some fun in this city, and go all out in this fight with your stronghold at the very center. Kuoh Academy will be reduced to nothing." This shocked many as they heard the fallen angel's answer. "Our academy?" Rias exclaimed in surprise. "If I do that, then Surzex will have no choice but to get involved. Isn't that right?" The smile on Kokabul's face only grew as he said this. Not to mention the fact that nearby, the House of Lucifer is within the area, another perfect target for the great Kaguya Lucifer to take action as well. Rias narrowed her eyes at just the thought of his plan succeeding. "But if you do that, another great war will break out between God, the fallen angels, and the devils." "That's the point, Rias-chan. Kokabul's goal is to start another war," Naruto said, making many turn to him in shock, though Kokabul's grin only grew larger, that is until what Naruto said next. "Azazel had told me his desire to prove that the fallen angels are supreme, taking advantage of the fact that all it would take was a nudge to get things started. He took the Excalibur fragments because he wanted God and his faction to react, and this fight would make the devil faction react. You are the sister of Lucifer while Sona is the sister of Leviathan, and to top it off there's me, an heir of the 4 great houses. So Azazel told you of my plans, no matter, that fool will not interfere," Kokabul stated before he started to laugh. "But I am impressed with how much you figured out Naruto Lucifer. I had fully expected some retaliation for taking away the 6 Excaliburs the churches had, but all I got was a weakling of an exorcist and 3 holy sword wielders. It's not enough. It's far too dull and unimpressive for my tastes." "You really desire war that much?" Sona questioned. "That's right. I couldn't resist the boredom that I felt after the Great War between the 3 factions ended." Kokabul held a claw hand out as he continued his explanation. "But despite my objections to Azazel, either that fool nor Shemhaza wanted another war." "Wait, aren't those the names that Rainier spoke of after taking Asia's sacred gears?" Issei said while thinking back to his battle with the female fallen angel. "I've read about him somewhere. Isn't he the big bad boss of the fallen angels?" "Yeah, Azazel is the Governor General of the fallen angels," Naruto answered before lifting his sword and pointing its blade at Kokabul. "But he already told me himself. He has no intention on another war and lose any more of his forces." "Very true," Kokabul snapped back as his folded wings twitched. "Azazel wasn't just against the idea. He ignored them entirely in order to collect those unexplainable things called sacred gears and is too absorbed in his research to do anything himself. He even ignored the reports that I had managed to obtain regarding the fact that a descendant of Lucifer had been living as a human. Naruto's eyes narrowed at that. So that's how that group knew about me. And were you the one who ordered them to kill me? That was an order I gave to Abazath personally. But in the end, all he and the others did was awaken your powers and give the Gremry heiress a new tool for her collection. Kokobile replied with a grin never leaving his face. While I do have a very slight interest in those sacred gears, it is nowhere close to Azazel's level. Bastard! Does that mean you're after the holy swords and sacred gears too? Issei yelled up at Kokobile, who started shaking his head. Not in the slightest. Your boosted gear might be of some use to someone, but unlike Azazel I couldn't care less. Kokobile let out a chuckle as he spoke. The fallen angel, God, and the devils are all walking on this thin line we call peace, and as you had stated Lucifer, it would only take a nudge to make another one break out. I'll be the one to do it. You are an insane war freak, Ria said as she shifted her stance, a small drop of sweat going down her face. If a second great war did break out, then the most likely result would be that all three sides would wipe each other out. You devils would be the perfect starting point for my war. The siblings of two Satans, Rias Gremry and Sona Citri, and Lucifer's heir and a devil who can harness pure light magic like the angels and now holds an Excalibur. All three mentioned devils went tense as they stared up at the fallen angel with hardened gazes. The wave of magic created from using your school would create a shockwave powerful enough to destroy this entire R, and I would thoroughly enjoy the ensuing chaos that comes after. A perfect place for a war, wouldn't you say? Saji took a step forward. This guy's a lunatic. Only a crazy person would start such a war, Issei commented as he stepped next to his fellow pawn. But it's his craziness that makes him so great to work with. My blood is boiling for some real action, Fried shouted with an insane laughter as he used his wing to lift himself into the air. Gripping the ends of his coat, Fried pulled them out to reveal another sword strapped to the inside of his coat, while a familiar ribbon was tied onto his arm. I was even given such awesome presents. That is another Excalibur, and it looks like he took the one Irina had, Naruto said while tightening the grip he had on his sword's hilt. Which means he has 3 Excaliburs again. The Excalibur destruction is the only one I don't sense in the area, which means that he hasn't fought Zenobia, Saber said to Naruto telepathically, to which the blonde nodded his head. Fried let out another laugh as he pulled the ribbon and transformed it into Excalibur Mimic. I gonna take back the sword you took from me, you shitty devil. And don't think I've forgotten you, pretty boy, you're another one on my list. Gawain said nothing as he stared at Fried with an unreadable expression before he looked next to the white-haired fallen angel where Kokobile was floating with a calculated gaze. So all of this was in order for you to start a war, correct? That's right, so let all participate in this war, sister of Serzex Lucifer, Rias Gremry. In a split second, Kokobile summoned a magical seal in front of him that released a large amount of light spears at the group. Everyone get back, Rias ordered as she, Sona and Akino grouped together and created several barriers to protect the group, causing several small explosions when they made contact, and the recoil made Issei and Saji take a step back while Kaneko jumped into the trees and Gawain raised Excalibur blessing in front of him and Asia. As this was happening, Naruto activated Rapidly's power and flew into the air with his sword posed to strike. He appeared in front of a smirking Kokobile and swung his blade across the fallen angel's torso, but Kokobile summoned a light sword to block Naruto's strike. The two stared into each other's eyes as they pushed their weapons against each other, before Kokobile let out a laugh. I'm impressed, Naruto Lucifer. You have a lot of power in that body of yours, but it's still not enough, Kokobile exclaimed before putting more strength into his weapon and sent Naruto back. But the Lucifer heir managed to halt his body before charging at Kokobile once again. This time the man did nothing as Naruto swung his sword down, but black feathers erupted from Kokobile's body instead of blood, blocking Naruto's view of him and Fried. Do not worry, we will have our battle, well, if you make it to your precious school in time. What the hell? Naruto swung his blade outward and dissipated the feathers surrounding him, allowing him to see that the sky had returned back to normal. Where did he run off to? Saji questioned as he looked around the sky for any signs of Kokobile. Kaneko pointed back towards the city. They went in that direction, towards the school. We need to hurry. If he really intends on making Kuoh Academy the ground zero of this battle, then things are gonna go to hell, Issei said while dismissing his sacred gear. It's not just that. A fallen angel of his caliber could easily vaporize this entire area and the surrounding mountains if he wanted to. Sona explained, causing Issei and the others to imagine the destruction caused by the madman's hands. That's fucking insane. Don't fuck with me, fallen angel! Issei shouted before slamming his fist into the metal railing that rested on the edge. The force of the brunette's fist caused the metal to quickly bend and break apart. We're heading towards the school before he tries anything, Naruto stated as he landed on the ground with a serious expression. I refuse to let him harm the city, or kill any of the people within it. Do you really mean that? All heads turned to Gawain, even Asia, who was standing next to him. Do you, a devil, really intend to fight a cadre-level fallen angel just to protect this city? Of course I do. This city, the people living within it, I am going to protect them with all the power I've got, Naruto said with a clenched fist, turning his head to look out at the city. And I swear I won't stop until I do. But against Kokobil's power, you need to have a lot of power yourself, and if that's the case. Hearing Asia let out a gasp, Naruto turned around to see Gawain now standing behind him with the Excalibur blessing held out in front of him. Then you will need to reform Excalibur as soon as possible. Naruto had a surprised look on his face as he looked at the sword with wide eyes. Are you really giving me Excalibur blessing? But what about your mission? And how will you be able to defend yourself? You said that the Lady of the Lake found you worthy of Excalibur, and I am not going to doubt a goddess's decision. Especially when I've gotten a good look at what kind of person you are. Gawain gave Naruto a smile before stabbing his sword into the ground. And when the only two options are between starting a war that could result in the deaths of billions and giving Naruto Lucifer the sword that is rightfully his, I don't think my choice can be any easier. And just because I won't have an Excalibur fragment doesn't mean I'm powerless. Staring down at the sword in silence, any though that Naruto had was dismissed by Saber as she appeared next to him. He is right, Naruto-sama. We will need all the power we can get, and reforming Excalibur will be our best chance at stopping Kokobil and his subordinates. Right, alright then, Saber. Naruto lifted up the Excalibur in his other hand before holding it over Excalibur blessing. Just like before, Naruto and the two blades started to glow, and with deep inhale and exhale the blonde spoke. Let these two become one. Naruto and the swords were enveloped in a bright light that blinded everyone for a few seconds before quickly dying down. In Naruto's hand was a new Excalibur, but unlike any of the previous swords the group had seen, this resembled one of the swords used during medieval times. The hilt was a navy blue with a golden guard that was slightly curved upward. The guard extended onto a double-edged blade that had strange writing at the base. Amazing! Asia said as she looked at the beautiful sword, having never seen the first time Naruto had combined two Excaliburs. It's so simple looking in comparison to the original 7, and yet I can't help but keep staring at it, Issei commented in awe. How come it doesn't look like a fused version of the 3 blades like it did before? Gawain asked as he studied the blade. It may have to do with my presence. It looks similar to what the true Excalibur looked like except for some key details, Saber deduced before shaking her head. But now is not the time for questions, it's the time for action. Naruto nodded his head before looking at everyone. Saber is right. We need to get to Kuoh Academy immediately. Let's go, everyone. Roger. The 3 heirs summoned 3 transportation circles and everyone quickly made their way inside their respective circles, causing them to glow. Sona and Saji were the first ones to teleport away, and both Naruto and Rias groups were next. But as their circles were about to teleport them away, a shadowy figure emerged from the trees and landed behind Naruto. Everyone turned their heads to see a man with tan skin, white hair and green eyes reach out and grab onto Naruto's shoulder. Sorry to disappoint you, but you're coming with me. In a quick flash of purple light, the man and Naruto disappeared, shocking everyone as the transportation circles began to teleport them away. Naruto. Rias and Akino both tried to shout, but the circle teleported them away before they could finish. Barrier dimension. Naruto landed on the ground with a grunt before back flipping onto his feet, glaring heavily at the man who teleported him away. Looking around them, Naruto could see that they were on one of the streets within the city. But unlike normal, everything around them was glowing a light blue and buildings were shifting back and forth. Who the hell are you? Ah, such a scary face, the man said with a cocky grin before cracking his neck. Getting a good look at him, Naruto saw he was wearing a white skin-tight t-shirt and white pants, and on his face was an X-shaped scar. The name Sayura, I'm the guy that was hired to separate you from your comrades and kill you. This is a special dimensional barrier created from my abilities, so you can't escape unless I let you. Hired? So you're a mercenary or something? I don't suppose you'll let me go even if I offer you a lot of money, huh? Naruto questioned while Saber appeared on his shoulder. I'm kind of in a hurry to get to Kuoh Academy. No way in hell, that would be too boring. And besides, Sayura licked his lips as a sadistic grin grew on his face. I was told that not only do I get to kill you however I want, but once this is all over I can enjoy making those devil chicks my personal toys. Well, if there is anything left, that is. A frown quickly grew on Naruto's face as his magical power swirled around him, causing the ground under him to form cracks. Forget what I said before. I'm going to kill you first and then head to the school, and then I'm going to defeat Kokobile. Interesting. Let's see if you can back up those words. Sayura replied before reaching into his back pocket and pulled out a rectangular device. The tan mercenary shifted his stance into a fighting pose, and his fingerless gloves started to glow. It's been a while since I fought a devil. I'm going to enjoy breaking you until you're begging for mercy. Saber, Guardian Mode. In a small tornado of energy, Naruto was wearing his silver armor with his Excalibur in hand. Looking behind him to where Kuoh Academy was located, he could see a beam of light shooting into the air. Naruto-sama, that light! Saber's voice called out as a familiar feeling went through both of them. It belongs to those 3 Excalibur fragments that Freed had. They must have found a way to fuse them together like we have. Rias, Sakino, everyone, all of you do your best and hold on until I get there. Turning his head back to the grinning Sayura, Naruto grabbed the hilt of his sword with 2 hands. The 2 fighters bent their legs slightly before charging forward, with Naruto's sword over his shoulder and Sayura with his fist pulled back. The 2 threw their attacks forward and created a flash of light when the attacks collided. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed. If you want the next part of this video, like, subscribe and comment down below, and turn on the bell notification. And also check out other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.